LinkedIn followers, and welcome to today's session to ensure compliance and realize more value with Omnichannel recording from Microsoft Teams. I'm David Wasserman from NICE's Portfolio Marketing Team, and today I'll be talking with Lee Garf, General Manager of NICE's Compliance line of business. So welcome, Lee.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining, Lee. Since the pandemic hit, everyone in the world has had to face significant challenges and changes to their lives. For me, new collaboration technology like Microsoft Teams and things like Zoom, they've really become an integral part to my new social and business routine. From a business point of view, when we think about how people have shifted communication preferences, during what's gone on in the past 6 or 7 months, can you maybe start us off today and talk to us about some of the trends and the impacts that you've seen in this new environment that we're all in?
Sure, David. Yeah, it's a very good question. I think we've all experienced the change in the remote work situation, and we're no longer able to collaborate with people in person. And it's driven a dramatic increase in the use of these collaboration tools like Teams. In fact, at our interaction session, our user conference last week, a representative from Microsoft indicated that in the month of March alone, the number of online communications or meetings through Teams increased dramatically from 540 million to over 2.5 billion. So we've seen a dramatic increase in the adoption and the expansion of the use of unified collaboration platforms like Teams. We've also seen the shift to rapid adoption of video. So it used to be, you may have experienced this as well, it used to be a lot of times you'd have a conference call, but not video. We've seen more than a doubling in the use of video. So this is a new adoption. And it's really about trying to bring people more together and recreate that in-person experience, which we just can't have in today's situation. So a recent study showed that 57% of people are feeling disconnected from their coworkers. And so this is these tools like Teams are really helping fill that gap.
Wow, that's some really interesting statistics, and I think probably for you like me, I've kind of gotten a view into people's bedrooms and offices and really a view into their personal life. But, we consider these organizations and how they've approached deploying these types of solutions across their enterprise. Was it smooth sailing, or was there really more to the story in getting things done the way they need to be done?
Yeah, well, certainly the adoption has increased, as we've personally experienced, but it's not all that straightforward. The technology is not necessarily the issue. Teams is a scalable platform, as an example, but in many industries, there are regulations that impact the rollout and adoption of unified communication platforms. A couple of use cases. In one use case, for example, in the financial services industry, traders need to be recorded. And so firms couldn't just roll out unified communications platforms like Teams without having a plan in place to capture those by mandate. Similarly, on the contact center, we've all experienced the calls may be recorded for quality purposes. Well, there were not systems in place to be able to capture and record those calls that are on platforms like Teams. And so companies had to scramble a bit and find solutions for as we roll out these new forms of communication, like you see, then how do we capture those?
I see, it's interesting. I think, as you mentioned, most of us get the message you're being recorded for quality purposes. But could you maybe give us a little more detail and dig into that use case on really why these organizations are recording calls, both the customer and the employee, both in the past and even ongoing?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the case of the financial services industry, in the wake of the meltdown back in 2008, there was a lot of rules put in place, Dodd-Frank, and that actually expanded globally to things like MAR and MiFID II in Europe and additional regulations in Asia. The crux of these, though, is that conversations between traders, buy side, sell side, or even retail investors and their financial advisors, these calls by regulation have to be recorded. And so there is a mandate for companies to record these calls, and for all good reason, that we can then go back and monitor what they said. We actually, in our user conference a couple of years ago, one of our user conferences, we had James Comey speak, and he's a bit of a controversial character, but one of the things he highlighted in his presentation, which was really interesting, was that really the way that the criminals get caught is not just primarily not by their action, but by what they say about things. And so people tend to either communicate and collude in advance, and then they tend to brag after the fact. And that's how the FBI and other agencies actually crack down. So recording these calls is really critical. The shift to cloud or shift to unified communications caused an issue because a lot of these work environments are set up in the trade floor, for example, or a contact center, where the whole idea was people are in a room together working in close contact and close collaboration. And so they had desktop phones or turrets in the case of traders. With the shift to work from home or work remote, that went out the window. And so now all of a sudden you don't have necessarily a physical device, you have a computer in which you're making those calls. So that rapid shift, and really at the time of this change of work from home back in the March timeframe, most firms were not quite prepared to manage the recording of these platforms.
I see. So we've got the intersection of hardcore regulations going back 10 or 12 years. We've got new communication types and people working at home, and potentially the lack of a recording solution. I guess for me as just a general citizen, it's somewhat worrying. I guess the question is, so how can organizations move forward? Obviously, people have done a lot since March, but I'm sure there's always more to do. What are the options for these firms as they both deploy effective omni-channel solutions to record these users and conversations, and the value that they can get from Microsoft Teams solution with NICE?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is there are commercial solutions already on the market available from NICE. We have been working with Microsoft in collaboration for months before the COVID crisis, and we are well ahead of the game. So we already have commercial products on the market that can record every mode of communication. That includes voice, video, screen share, chat. And these are commercially available and being deployed now in many situations. So the good news is those solutions are available. They're available either completely as a cloud solution or as a hybrid where the recording device is on-prem. So these are available. And one thing I do want to highlight, because the question comes up, is Teams, for example, has the ability for a user to record the meeting. And so isn't that good enough? And that's something that's called convenience recording. So a user, if they want to keep the record, can do that. That is different than what we're just talking about, David, around a regulatory requirement to have 100% of the calls captured and stored and kept in records for up to 7 years in many cases. So the solution, you really do need a robust solution. The good news is, in collaboration and partnership with Microsoft, we have a solution on the market. NICE is the first certified solution in the market, and so there is a solution available.
Great. So I feel better. You've certainly painted a comprehensive picture of really the benefits of unified communications and a solution that includes both Microsoft Teams and NICE. The challenges that, I guess I'll call it the basic Teams recording brings, and how to solve that problem and get real value out of the solution. Do you have maybe a real life example, something we've experienced over the past 6 or 7 months that you can share to really bring this thing home for folks?
Yeah, I can share a couple of case studies. One example, a large Canadian bank they use our solution now for on-prem recording of things like turrets and back office phones, Cisco, Avaya type phones. They were also recording Skype. With the rapid rollout in that organization of Teams, they needed a quick solution in place to meet the regulatory demand, and they partnered with us to roll out a cloud Teams recording solution within weeks. And this is something that we're able to quickly respond and get that solution up and running. And today it's a hybrid solution where Teams is in the cloud. Over time, the on-prem may also move to the cloud, but in our solution, we support either approach. There's other examples. A very large European bank, which has an on-prem, is also moving to clouds. Their intention is to work in a hybrid mode where some things are on-prem, some things cloud. But we have many case studies where it's really, we're flexible and can very quickly roll out solutions for teams, reliable, compliant teams capture.
Great. Well, it's certainly clear, Lee, that the NICE trading recording solution with Microsoft Teams is able to effectively and reliably record omni-channel interactions between customers and financial institutions. If any of you on today's broadcast that are watching have interest in anything that we talked about around this solution with NICE and Microsoft Teams, click on the Contact Us link above us both on the post, and we'll be sure to get back to you quickly and talk to you more in detail about it. Lee, thanks again for joining. It was super informative. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, David.
And again, thanks to all our LinkedIn audience today. I hope you found the discussion insightful, certainly for me. And we look forward to seeing you on our next LinkedIn Live from NICE. Have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.